Hello, this is Bill Bullard with RCAF USA, the voice of the independent cattle producer in the United States of America. Well, you may already know that RCAF USA is the largest producer-only trade association in the United States, lobbying exclusively for farmers and ranchers who raise and sell live cattle. What you may not know is that RCAF USA also represents America's sheep producers, which is a natural addition given that many cattle producers also raise sheep. And because the sheep industry is the livestock industry most similar to the U.S. cattle industry. This is true in terms of sheep's biological makeup and the sheep industry's market structure. Also, like the cattle industry, the sheep industry has not and does not produce enough lamb to satisfy America's appetite for lamb. It underproduces for the domestic market. Up until the mid-90s, the U.S. sheep industry provided the vast majority of lamb consumed in America. But as government policies invited more and more cheaper, undifferentiated lamb in the U.S. from around the world, primarily Australia and New Zealand, domestic imports of lamb skyrocketed and domestic lamb prices fell. By 2006, the U.S. sheep industry became the first American livestock industry to be outsourced. Since then, the majority of lamb consumed in the United States is imported. As a result of this flood of imports, the U.S. sheep flock shrank from 12 million head less than half a lifetime ago to only about 5.4 million head today. And today, there are fewer than 2,100 sheep producers that maintain sheep flocks of 300 head or more. Now, a 300 head sheep operation is roughly equivalent to about 60 cows, meaning it is not large enough to be a full-time economic endeavor. So how did imports shrink our domestic sheep industry? Well, it's simple. Imported prices are consistently pegged below domestic prices. In 2012, when sheep prices collapsed like cattle prices did in 2015, the U.S. Department of Agriculture stated that imported product is substantially cheaper than domestic product, and explained that a 65 to 75 pound domestic lamb carcass was valued at about $255, whereas a comparable imported lamb carcass can be delivered to the U.S. for less than $200. What this means is that the United States trade policy has failed our sheep industry, just as it has failed our cattle industry. That failed policy has all but destroyed our commercial sheep industry, and it did so at breakneck speed due to cheaper, undifferentiated, and unrestrained imports. Now, this is bad news for rural America that once flourished when domestic sheep prices supported millions more sheep and tens of thousands more family-owned sheep operations. Now, one characteristic of the sheep industry different than the cattle industry is that the sheep generate two incomes per animal, one from the meat and one from the wool. However, this wasn't good enough to survive mounting lamb imports. And on top of that, the beleaguered sheep industry could not attract sufficient investments to sustain wool processing and product line facilities for all the wool it was producing in the United States. No, those investments flowed to China, just as many of our nation's manufacturers offshore to China. China is now the exclusive processor for about half the wool produced in the United States because it is the only country that has the processing equipment and product lines for certain mixed grades of U.S. wool. Now, about a year ago, China imposed a 10% tariff on U.S. wool exports, which soon increased to 25%. So somewhat less than half the approximately 25 million pounds of wool produced each year, that's about approximately 10 million pounds of wool, is today untradeable and is being stockpiled in U.S. wool warehouses. The reason is that all the equipment and product lines to support this mounting stockpile of U.S. wool is now in China, and the 25% tariff makes wool from virtually everywhere else in the world cheaper than our U.S. wool. It makes you wonder, why is the president bailing out huge multinational corporations that complained of their inability to sell to China, while simultaneously ignoring completely the needs of independent commercial sheep farmers and ranchers scattered all across rural America? Our sheep industry and cattle industry are way out of balance, and someone needs to take a stand to rebalance it. No one in Congress has stepped forward, no one in the administration has stepped forward, and no one will step forward unless we do, unless we take the bull by the horns, or in this case, the ram by the horns, and educate our elected and appointed officials as to what needs to be done to preserve America's ranchers. We hope you will join us to achieve this very important goal. And it takes numbers to do that, and that means we need your membership to be successful. With that, we're out of time. We hope you have a successful week. Happy Thanksgiving, and goodbye.